dead body, and I nearly fell. Lena glanced at me, a slight frown on her face. "Stay away from those people." She said it like a warning, not an invitation, and turned to leave. I called after her quickly. "Commander Lena, do you know where my parents were sent? Their names are Frank and Susan Lin." Lena thought for a moment. "I remember them. Boss Leo dumped everyone who couldn't work or fight, the elderly, the weak, the sick, at the abandoned factory outside the north gate. He called it letting them fend for themselves." My chest clenched hard. An abandoned factory. No food, no protection. That was as good as a death sentence. The moment Lena left, I shut the door. I had to get to that factory. I had to find Mom and Dad. But first, I needed to arm myself. I pulled a chocolate bar from my pack, shoved it down in 2 bites to restore my energy, then turned my eyes to the steel pipe Scorpion had left on the floor, rusted, even slightly bent. I pressed my hand against it. Refresh. A brand new steel pipe appeared in my hand, gleaming with a cold metallic sheen. That wasn't enough. I ran to the kitchen and found my dad's old outdoor survival kit, which held a multi-tool entrenching shovel, a survival hatchet, and a combat knife, all dulled from years of sitting untouched. Refresh. All 3 blades instantly snapped back to the razor-sharp edge they had on the day they were made. When darkness fell, I slipped through the gap between patrol shifts and crept to the north gate. It was far more desolate than the main entrance. Just 2 guards yawning at their post. I didn't disturb them. Instead, I found a blind spot in the cameras and used a freshly refreshed rope to scale the wall, over 3 meters high, without breaking a sweat. Outside the wall was wasteland. In the distance, the silhouette of a factory loomed, like a silent beast of steel. The air reeked of rot. Somewhere in the dark, zombies groaned. I gripped my steel pipe, crouched low, and moved fast toward the factory. But the closer I got, the more zombies there were. I ducked behind a crumbled wall and saw at least a dozen zombies clustered at the factory gate, drawn by something inside, slamming their bodies against the sealed iron doors. From behind those doors came faint cries and screams. Mom and Dad were in there. Panic burned through me. But reason held me back. I couldn't rush in blind. I scanned the area and spotted a row of high windows along the factory's side wall, about 4 meters up. That could be my way in. My mind was made up. I moved. I grabbed a loose rock and hurled it with everything I had at an abandoned car down the road. It struck the window with a sharp crack. The zombies at the gate took the bait, turning sluggishly and shambling toward the sound. I seized the moment, sprinting to the factory wall, pulled out my rope, tied a climbing pick to one end, and swung it hard. The pick caught firm on the window ledge. I took a breath, climbed hand over hand, pulled myself through the window, and dropped inside. It was a massive production floor. Rusted machines and scattered parts everywhere, with only thin slivers of moonlight falling through the broken roof. From the far end of the floor came muffled crying and arguing. I followed the sounds, moving carefully through the dark. In a corner barricaded by broken-down machinery, I found dozens of survivors. Most of them were elderly or children. I spotted my parents instantly. They were huddled in the corner, Mom clutching her knees, crying without a sound, while Dad held her close, whispering comfort. My eyes went red immediately. I called out to them, my voice breaking. Everyone startled and turned at once. Mom and Dad snapped their heads up, and the moment they saw me, shock melted into overwhelming joy. Mom let out a cry and scrambled toward me. The 3 of us, in this hopeless apocalypse, held each other tightly. The joy of being reunited washed away every fear and every ounce of despair, but the moment was cut short by a harsh voice. "Hey, where did you come from?" A man with a long scar across his face stepped forward, a group of muscular young men behind him, clearly the one in charge here. His eyes locked onto my bulging backpack, burning with greed. "Impressive, kid. Making it here alone. What's in the bag? Show everyone." I stepped in front of my parents and met his eyes coldly. "It's mine." "Yours?" Scar let out a short, contemptuous laugh. "Nothing belongs to anyone here. It all belongs to me. Hand over the bag if you're smart. Or else." He swung his cleaver slowly, the threat needing no further explanation. His crew moved in behind him, circling like wolves. The elderly and weak who had been dumped here watched in silence, furious but powerless, their eyes filled with helpless sympathy for me. My dad quickly pulled me behind him, forcing a smile at Scar. "Sir, my son doesn't know how things work here. There's just a little food in the bag. Take it all. Just don't hurt him." "Too late," Scar sneered, his face twisting with cruelty. "I don't just want the bag anymore, I want his life." The words barely left his mouth before he lunged for me. My eyes went cold. I didn't step back. I stepped forward, and drove the steel pipe into his wrist at a sharp, precise angle. A sharp crack rang out. Scar's wrist bent at a grotesque angle. Everyone froze. Nobody had expected the scrawny kid to fight back. Scar broke into a cold sweat from the pain, his face twisted with rage. "You dare hit me? Get him! All of you! I'll make him wish he were dead!" His crew snapped out of their shock and charged at me, yelling. I tossed the backpack to my parents and raised the pipe to meet them. One swung a wooden club at my head. I twisted aside, flicked my wrist, and drove the other end of the pipe into his weak point. He screamed and crumpled to the ground. No wasted movement. Every strike targeted a vulnerable joint, just enough to protect myself. What scared them even more was that I never seemed to tire. After I dropped 2 of them, the rest hesitated, too afraid to move in. Scar clutched his broken wrist, staring at me in shock and fury. "Who are you? Are you an ability user?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him with cold, unblinking eyes. Every ounce of suffering I had endured over these months of apocalypse ignited in this moment into a blaze of fury. Walk away, or die. The sheer ferocity in my voice silenced the room. Scar's expression flickered. He hadn't expected to hit a wall like this. But just as we stood at a standoff, the factory's iron doors let out a thunderous boom, then a second, then a third. The crowd erupted into panic. "The zombies are ramming the gate. What's happening? Why are they suddenly going crazy? Fear spread through the crowd like a plague. Even Scar forgot about me. He and his crew threw their bodies against the buckling doors, piling debris to hold them shut. But there were too many zombies. The doors were warping under the impact, the bolt groaning. It could give way any second. Despair settled over everyone. My parents trembled beside me, gripping my hand. I took one look at the doors. Old, heavily rusted iron. A bold idea formed in my mind. I picked up my steel pipe and walked toward the doors, every pair of eyes in the room watching in disbelief. "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" One of Scar's men screamed at me from behind the door. I ignored him and pressed my hand flat against the cold, rusted surface. Then, before everyone's unbelieving eyes, a miracle unfolded. The battered, dented iron doors smoothed out as if time itself were reversing, every dent vanishing, the warped frame straightening back to perfect. In an instant, a gleaming steel gate stood before them, factory new and immovable. The zombies outside slammed against it, but it didn't budge, absorbing each blow with a deep, muffled thud. The entire factory floor fell dead silent. Every single person stared at me speechless. Scar's jaw hung open, the pain in his wrist completely forgotten. He pointed at me, stuttering. Your ability, it's repair." I didn't bother explaining. I pulled my hand back and looked at him coldly. In the apocalypse, power was the only currency that mattered. The ruthlessness I had shown, combined with what they had just witnessed, had completely shattered Scar's nerve. He looked at me, and the greed in his eyes was gone, replaced by deep, unmistakable fear. "Boss, I had no idea who I was dealing with. I was blind. Please, don't hold it against me." I said nothing. I walked to my parents. Mom looked at me with an expression I couldn't fully read. Pride, worry, and something like not quite recognizing the person in front of her. I took her hand and gave her a look that said everything was okay. "Mom, don't be scared. I've got you." Then I reached into the backpack and pulled out a self-heating rice meal, a sausage, and a bottle of clean water and handed them over. "Mom, Dad, eat something first." The smell of food instantly drew every eye in the room. The survivors, who hadn't eaten in who knows how long, stared at the food in my parents' hands, their throats working with audible swallows, their eyes hollow with hunger. Scar and his crew were practically bug-eyed. In a world where food was worth more than gold, I had produced all of this without even blinking. And that shook them even more than fixing the gate had. When it was done, I turned back to Scar. "From this moment on, I'm in charge here." My voice was calm, but it reached every corner of that room. Scar's face twitched. Then slowly his head dropped. Taking over the factory went smoother than I expected. In the face of absolute power and limitless supplies, whatever authority Scar wanted crumbled instantly. I didn't drive them away. Manpower was a resource too. I put them on guard duty and zombie clearing operations nearby, while I handled food and logistics. Every day I locked myself in a private room, pretending to take inventory, while actually refreshing food and every other essential supply at full speed. When crate after crate of fresh supplies appeared before them, everyone looked at me with awe. They all assumed I had some kind of spatial ability, with a pocket dimension full of stockpiled goods. With enough food and a secure shelter, the survivors slowly came back to life. Under my management, the entire abandoned factory became organized and efficient. Mom and Dad became my most trusted helpers, managing people and distributing supplies. They found their dignity and purpose again among the group, and their spirits lifted more with every passing day.
Follow, like, comment, and share for part 3.